Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the channel. I trust that you are all well. And today I'm going to be talking about knowing narcissism. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a very, very important topic. Now, the reason why, and I've got to be as transparent as possible here, so that people don't get the wrong impression of what my intentions are. First of all, I am not a professional psychologist, clinician, nothing of these sorts. I am not setting myself up as a guru, none of these things, right? If you need psychological help, if you need psychological anything, you go and see a professional. I'm not a professional. So what am I doing here? The reason why I want to bring up the subject of narcissism is because, and I want to apply it specifically to the modern culture that is permeating and becoming very prominent within the Christian church. It is my belief that Christianity, by and large, specifically in the West, has become utterly unable to discern narcissism. Utterly unable to discern narcissism. Now, traditionally, Christians will know and understand narcissism by another word. That word is pride. So we can go, for example, to the Bible, and we can see that there are all kinds of verses. So you can go to the Bible Gateway. I'm using the King James for the purposes of this and copyright and so on and so forth. But anyway, it says, pride goeth before destruction, and a haughty spirit before a fall, right? So no matter how well you think you are doing, you're eventually going to lead you to destruction, and you're eventually going to have a big fall. And you can go, I will break the pride of your power, and so on. And so it talks a lot about pride. Let not the foot of pride come against me, and let not the hand of the wicked remove me. So pride goes hand in hand with a lot of wickedness, a lot of evil in the world, and so on and so forth. For the sins of their mouth and the words of their lips. Now, this is so interesting when you understand the construct that is narcissism in psychology. The way the Bible talks about pride is actually really uncanny, because one thing that narcissists do is they like to manipulate language. For the sin of their mouth and the words of their lips, let them even be taken in their pride, and for cursing and lying which they speak. Narcissists absolutely love, actually love is an incorrect term, by necessity, because of the psychological disorder. Narcissists manipulate language all the time. So when a narcissist says a word like love, or says a word like justice, right, which are words we see very, very often, they're literally thrown around all over the place today, they do not mean the same thing that you and I generally mean. And not by any stretch of the imagination. If you have to then excavate and go behind the words to the philosophy, to the ideology behind it, and you will find that when they're talking about love, it actually has nothing to do with love at all. And one of the interesting things is that narcissists and people of that sort actually are unable to fully there's a tendency for them to habitually misidentify emotions and things of that sort. But I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. This is an introductory thing, and so it is my position that the Christian church, not only have they become utterly unable, incompetent to detect pride, right? Unless the only time Christians today are able to detect pride, are able to detect narcissism, is if it is the most classic, most textbook type of narcissism that you could possibly ever get. So, for example, a Donald Trump, right, and something like that. Unless it's an absolutely classic example, like textbook example, in your face, overtly narcissist, in your face example. Christians have absolutely no skill and power of discernment to detect narcissism wherever it can and may be found. And so much so that Christians, for the most part, have taken on the world's way of thinking and actually promote narcissism. Right? Actually, for the most part, promote narcissism, various features of narcissism that are actually as a good way to be. Right, as a good way to be. So if I go to my intro page, unless so you see a cat looking into the mirror and he sees a lion, right? He sees a lion, and so that is the most typical example of narcissism that people immediately recognize. Someone who thinks that they are more than what they in fact are. And so before we get into into the details of narcissism, we need to understand, how does someone become a narcissist? This is not a conscious choice. All right, this is not a conscious choice. Because what happens is, the problem with narcissism is that individuals use it as a term of derision. It's like calling someone stupid or calling someone arrogant, and it's simply become another word of derision. But there is actually a lot more to it, narcissism, when you're speaking about it as the technical, clinical entity that it is in fact is. No one wakes up one day, I'm gonna be a narcissist, sort of thing. Narcissists are made. Okay, narcissists are made. What happens is, a narcissist develops from a traumatized childhood. A traumatized childhood. Narcissism is literally a post-traumatic disorder. Literally. A post-traumatic disorder. And narcissism is a means by which an individual, being faced with trauma in their life, develops a means of coping with that trauma, with that unstable environment, etc., etc. And unfortunately, this coping mechanism then stays with them for the rest of their lives. So once you remove the narcissist from the situation in which the trauma was generated, now they're in it's like, for example, like a soldier with PTSD. You may take the soldier and remove him from the war zone. It doesn't mean that his problems go away, right? He continues. The PTSD follows him wherever he may go, because he had to learn to be a certain way in the war zone. So, for example, it is in a war zone. It is a means to preserve your life, to be highly neurotic, for example, to the sound of a loud bang, right? Because it might be nothing, but it could be the enemy coming in to kill you, right? And so in a war zone, this works, and it is a means of survival. But if you take that then into a normal civilian life, it becomes a problem, right? It becomes a problem. Then any bang or loud sound, then the person off he goes, and in his mind he's back there in this place of trauma. So for the narcissist, basically he's living his life as if everything is still back in those days. And what trauma does to people is that trauma how can you say, cuts off your development at a certain point of your life. So in a sense, it is very, very much like dissociative identity disorder, in the sense where the different personalities will all have a different age depending on the age at which the trauma occurred that they are then responsible for dealing with. It's the same thing with narcissism. So a narcissist typically has the maturity of a 4 to 9 year old. That is where the development phase of the human being gets stunted. So this is why when you are dealing with a narcissist, if you find that you're dealing with someone that resembles a child more than an adult, the reason for that is because you literally are dealing with a child. You are not in fact dealing with an adult, not by any stretch of the imagination. And so what happens is, as a means of self-preservation, you have a breakdown in object relations. So an object relations is all of the objects inside that are representative of the world, the people around you, and all these kinds of things. And then you have external objects, which is then the things themselves. So the internal representation of the external thing, and then the external thing itself. And in a healthy person, you have the interaction between the two. And usually and this is how you have interpersonal relationships and deal with things in the world. For the narcissist, however, there are no external objects, so you immediately have an object relations problem. The narcissists literally retreat into themselves. They create a false self to protect the child self. So what happens is the narcissist, when they're a child, they subsume themselves, they cease to exist almost, and they erect a false persona, and this persona is meant to protect them. So in the same way, like a superhero is meant to protect people, right? We will go to to the movies, and we watch all of these superheroes. They are defending the innocent and all of these kinds of things. So with the narcissist, he develops a false self that is literally like a god, because then this god, he makes almost like a transaction. It's like, if you consume me, if you take the place of who I am and become me, I'm quite willing to have that happen, so long as you protect me. And so what you have is this false representation of someone who is basically a god. They literally believe that they are like gods, in a sense, that they are wonderful and omnipotent and omniscient and all of these kinds of things. This is literally what they believe. And this is necessary as a means of self-preservation. And so what happens is the single purpose, the single most important thing to a narcissist is something that is known as narcissistic supply. Okay, narcissistic supply is basically anything, any feedback from the external environment that supports, props up this view of himself or herself, right? So imagine, for example, I do a cardboard cutout of Superman, right? Now, the cardboard cutout cannot stand on its own. It's a two-dimensional thing, and if you just put it, it will fall over. It needs to be propped up against something. And it has all of these various things, like when you go to the movies and stuff like that, you see these cardboard cutout things. But the ones that stand on their own are these very elaborate constructions that allow this cardboard facade basically to be able to stand up. And it is this, and that is basically what narcissistic supply is. The narcissist's singular aim in life, is to garner narcissistic supply from the external environment in order so that they can regulate their internal emotional state. Okay? And then you come into a problem with the narcissist when the external or reality conflicts with this internal view they have of themselves. And they are, in that sense, they are in fact very, very codependent on other people. They rely on other people for their survival, even though they will treat other people like garbage, like you are beneath me, and all of these kinds of things. It's a very, very interesting construct and concept and stuff like that. Now, narcissism falls under cluster B personality disorders. So cluster B is narcissism, it is psychopathy or antisocial behavior and all that sort of thing, borderline and histrionic personality disorder. More often than not, narcissists and psychopaths are male, and borderline and histrionics are female. However, it is becoming increasingly the case that in the psychological world, and these things move very, very slowly, but the best thinkers in the field at this point believe that the four are actually how can I say, that the four different personality disorders are in fact merely one personality disorder, but with overlays. So for anyone that deals clinically with people from borderline, from psychopathy, and all of these kinds of things, they will find, and this is why it can be so difficult to diagnose people, and also a lot of misdiagnosis occurs, is because there is so much overlap between histrionic and borderline and narcissism and stuff like that, that people are regularly confused. And there is an increasing opinion these days that borderline, for example, that borderline personality disorder is merely the female version of psychopathy, of secondary psychopathy or sociopathy, right? And if you've ever had a borderline female go into a fit of rage, then you would probably agree. You would probably agree, because so for example, a typical borderline fit of rage, she will basically go and slash your tires, for example. She will just start smashing things and start screaming like a banshee, like something you can't believe, right? When she just loses it completely. It's like it's like this individual has gone from human being to raging demon, right? And like that it can happen, right? I've actually experienced that myself in my life. The only person that in my family that ever assaulted, not my mother, sort of thing, but the only person, so for example, when you talk about domestic abuse and stuff like that, in my life growing up, the only person I ever was assaulted by was in fact a female, was a borderline female. So that was so learning these things has been very, very interesting, right? And so because of these constructs, a lot of, when you look at these kinds of things, you can see why. If you actually look at incidents of domestic violence, men and women are actually the aggressors an equal amount of time. In fact, women aggress slightly more. So you're looking at about 55% versus 45% for males. Women are actually the aggressors in domestic violence slightly more than what men are. So it's actually very, very, very interesting. So anyway, so back to the narcissist. So that's narcissism, basically. The individual, their development is stunted at when they're young, and then certain aspects of their personality don't develop. Now, what happens is, what people also are saying, what the literature is saying, and what is tending to be said, is that we are all, every single one of us, we are all narcissists to some degree or another. Now, the vast majority of people are not full-blown narcissists where you can go and receive a little certificate or whatever from a psychologist. Yes, this person is a clinically diagnosed full-on grade A narcissist. Very, very, such individuals are actually very rare. So for even psychopaths, sociopaths, and all these kinds of things is not as common, that full-on raging grade A sort of thing. Nevertheless, human beings, we are all narcissists to some degree or another, and we will possess a lot of the traits and stuff like that. And it makes sense. Now, from a Christian perspective, this makes sense because biblically we talk about the fall, and we talk all humans, the inclination of humans is towards evil, is toward wickedness, is towards, as the Bible says, pride and haughtiness and all of these kinds of things, to think more of ourselves than we should. And the Bible's consistent admonition to us is be humble, is to strive towards humility as much as possible, and but not be proud and all of these sorts of things. And so I would agree with the assessment that everyone is a narcissist to some degree or another, and generally speaking, you are much more of a narcissist than you realize, right? Which is in a lot of ways why people don't like psychologists that are saying these kinds of things, and also don't like religion, right? The major sort of Judeo-Christian religions, because they basically, so correctly told, basically say you're all proud, you are all wicked, you are all degenerate, and you need to repent, and you need to become humble, and all of these kinds of things. And this is then where it gets to my point. Christianity today is becoming the social justice feel-good, this feel-good religion that's you are wonderful, and you are amazing, and you can do anything you want, right? And there's no punishment forthcoming from God because you're such an angel, and because he loves you so much, you are no longer under the law, you are under grace. And because grace abounds, and therefore you can be as much of there's no repentance, there's no conviction of sin, and all of these kinds of things. And in Christianity, when you see people say, yes, I'm a sinner, this is lip service. They don't mean it, because they will literally, in the next 5 minutes, right, behave like a narcissist kind of thing. And the social justice and the political correctness and all of these things, right, these are all full-blown examples of narcissism. And you get these sort of self-help gurus and these life coaches, right, and all of these kinds of things. Not only do you get them in the world, but you get them in Christianity as well. Life coaches and you know, people, if you do this, then you're going to be right with the Lord, and if you do that, you're going to be right with it. And all of these prescribers, these Pharisees who telling you, you know, how you should live like this and live like that. And when you look at, compare it to the Bible, you're like, this does not line up. This is merely the person's individual philosophy. And so you have situations like, even at the moment, where everything, the worst thing in the world is things like racism and racism this, and you must be anti-racist and all these kinds of things. All of these things are the works of narcissism. And so the focus of the gospel has changed from being centered on Christ and emulating him and being humble. Instead, it is a self-aggrandizement. I am the victim, or I am the perpetrator. So think about it. You are so grandiose. You are so grandiose and so narcissistic that you believe that merely because you are white, merely because you are white, because you exist as a white person, that your mere existence as a white person is somehow magically influencing some poor black person out on the other side of the world or in your local community. And only if you repent of your whiteness, will these poor, unfortunate human beings be able to rise from the ashes. And therefore, do you see where I'm going with this? So all of the white guilt is in fact a form of narcissism, because whites are so wonderful and so powerful and so omnipresent and so fantastic that unless they do this work, the rest of the world, all of us poor people of color, we're lost. We're lost. There's nothing we can do in life. We must beg and plead at the feet of these privileged white people in order for us to be able to make it in life. And they have to give us preferential treatment and preferential consideration. And our moral responsibility is completely removed from us as individuals and placed on the shoulders of white people and the government, because they must look after us, because they are just so, you know, there is a mythologizing that is very, very prominent and all of that sort of thing. And even the person that is the victim is getting that attention. That is also narcissistic. I'm such a victim. I'm the most victim of all the victims in the victimville, in the victim world, right? The biggest I'm going to write a book about it and make a movie about it. I'm so the victim, and my victimizer, he was the worst victimizer that ever victimized a victim, ever. He's the worst. He must be, he's Satan himself, right? There's a mythologizing, right? You mythologize, and because and you get a sense of I'm so virtuous and righteous because I'm so persecuted, and you know, and we're seeing this, and this is all taken the place of the gospel. Completely replaced the gospel. The social justice gospel is the same thing like we had a while back with the prosperity gospel. If you think you can believe it, just ask the Lord whatever you want, and he's a slot machine that can give you everything. The Lord is Christ is at your beck and call, because you are so special, right? The speaking in tongues. The Lord showed me, little me, because I'm, you know, and there's a pseudo humility that goes with it, right? But because I'm so wonderful and so special, the Lord gave me a message that I must give to all of you people. And now we must be praying in the spirit and slaying and all of these kinds of things. This is pure and absolute unadulterated narcissism, ladies and gentlemen. We have a narcissism, an epidemic of narcissism in our modern society today. And any psychologist worth his salt is recognizing this, to say we are having a catastrophe today where every species of narcissism is exploding to the point where everyone and his dog today is exhibiting huge amounts of narcissism. And narcissism is one of those things that that is contagious. In a world that is narcissistic, in order to survive in a world that is narcissistic, you have to become a narcissist in order to survive. Remember, we said it is a survival mechanism at the beginning of this sort of thing. So these are the kinds of things that we are, and considerations that we are dealing with, and why I think it's so important to understand this. Now, one more thing before we continue with this paper, or not this paper, but with this little thing that I'm going to show you. Trauma. There is the socially unacceptable trauma, which is abuse, verbal abuse, physical abuse, rape, molestation, torture, all of these kinds of things. But there is also socially sanctioned abuse. Ladies and gentlemen, there is what is socially sanctioned abuse? When you put your child up on a pedestal and you tell the child, you are wonderful, you can do no wrong. The child is not allowed to develop, is not allowed to separate from the parents and be their own individual and to set and enforce their own boundaries. Remember, we're talking about an object relations issue. There's the inner objects and the outer objects, and you need to set boundaries between these things. So with a narcissist, there is a breakdown in these boundaries where everything that is external becomes internalized. And they take a snapshot of you. So for example, a perfect example of a parent who is exhibiting a narcissistic trait. For example, let's say your mother is feeling cold and she makes you put on a jersey because she's feeling cold, not because you are feeling cold. Whether you in fact feel cold or not is irrelevant, but your mother will force you to put on, despite your protests, right? Will force you to put on a jersey or a jacket. How you feel is utterly irrelevant to your mother in that point. She is cold, therefore you must be cold as well. And she does not allow that in that situation, the object relations between the child as an individual, separate entity, and the mother, that line is being blurred where the mother is the child and the child is the mother. And we see this all the time. Fathers do the same thing as well, where they force the child to be what he envisions is the best thing. They do not allow the children, so let's say, for example, the father wanted to be an astronaut, right? But he failed. He couldn't be an astronaut. But the whole life of the child, the father constantly, without regard whatsoever to whether the child himself or not wants to be an astronaut or not. Maybe he wants to be a football player. Maybe he wants to be an engineer. Maybe he wants to be a physicist. No, you will be an astronaut. And if you are not an astronaut, you are a failure and you have disappointed me and your mother and you are the worst person. That you become not you, but you are subsumed under the personality. So there is a saying that I believe, I'm not sure if it was coined by Sam Vaknin, doctor, professor. Now I think he's professor. Where some people, they don't only put their children on a pedestal, they put the pedestal on top of the children. And the child's whole life duty is to support the weight of that pedestal with the parents' imagination of themselves, their regrets, on weighing down this pedestal. And that is how the child lives. And the child is never allowed to individuate from the parent. So all of the praise, and then the child grows up, if they're all constantly praised, how wonderful you are, how special you are, the child has no reason to develop. The child goes out into the real world, and when reality hits them, what happens? Complete meltdown. Complete meltdown, which is exactly what you see happening in the universities today. These students running around, insane, basically. These student protests that go into riots, that go into shouting at the teachers, taking over classrooms, taking over completely, screaming, swearing at the teachers, no respect for authority whatsoever, nothing. This is exactly what you see today, rioting around, running around like a bunch of lunatics. Because they're angry, because they think they have the right. You must listen to us. You do not get to have an opinion. You are going to listen to me. This is exactly what's going on. Right. So let's get into it. Ladies and gentlemen, this is, let me go right to the bottom here. This is a chart that appeared in Akhtar SJ 1989, Narcissistic Personality Descriptive Features. It's so Cooper and Akhtar, right? Ladies and gentlemen, if anyone, look at me now, if anyone contradicts this chart, they are wrong. This is the authoritative chart on this particular subject in the world, right? No one else has defined it better. No one else has defined it correctly. There are many self-styled people out there who think whatever, want to just nonsense. Okay? If it is not according to this, it is wrong. And by the way, if I'm wrong, then I'm wrong. You go and you find someone else who is, I would recommend the channel of Professor Sam Vaknin. S-A-M-V space V-A-K-N-I-N. Sam Vaknin, and he knows exactly what he is talking about. And so this chart here, we have the clinical features of an arrogant, overt, or a shy and covert narcissism. Arrogant, overt, shy, and overt. Now this is where this becomes very interesting. Most people, when they think of narcissists, they think of the grandiose. I am the most wonderful, I am the most brilliant. You think Donald Trump, basically, is what people think. They do not realize that narcissism has a shy, covert, collapsed state. Now, all of the personality disorders have three states in which they can exist, right? You have the grandiose state, you have a collapsed state, and you have a covert state, right? What happens? How do we differentiate? Remember that cardboard artificial false self that they put of themselves, this wonderful thing, this facade that they put up, and it is propped up by the narcissistic supply of other human beings and a false reality, right? What happens? That is the classic, that is a grandiose narcissist, right? Then what happens is if the supporting struts are taken away, so there's no more narcissistic supply from other human beings, they are unable, they fail to obtain narcissistic supply. They fail to make other human beings believe that they are wonderful, and reality hits them right in the face and shows them, you know what, you are actually an idiot. Then the cardboard box collapses. When the cardboard box collapses, they then have that they go through a collapsed phase. They can it's ugly. It's ugly. But then they go into what's known as a covert phase, which is they still believe that they are grandiose. But now they have to ask themselves, why did that fail? Why did it collapse? I'm so wonderful. Really, really. I am the king of the world. I am the God himself. But people just don't realize it. And then they begin a work of creating a new delusion to explain why the collapse occurred in the first place. And then they become the victim. It is not my fault because I'm God. I can do nothing wrong. Therefore, it must be exclusively some external factor that is oppressing me and holding me down, that I did not achieve this. And you actually see this, for example, mirrored almost exactly in the philosophy of communism. Have you ever heard communism has not really been tried properly? Never mind, it's killed 100 million people and counting. It's never really been tried. In fact, what a lot of people don't realize is that Marxism, his philosophy was an attempt not only to apply communism, which was an agrarian system, to oversee an agrarian society, right? It was ill-suited for the urban world. Marx's idea was essentially not only to take communism and apply it to urban centers, to apply it to cities, but also to explain why communism failed. Right? It was his attempt to explain why, in fact, communism failed, because as far as he was concerned, that communism was the final analysis, the final thesis. The proletariat were going to take over, and everything was going to go from there. That communism was the final state in evolution of human society. Right? So when it failed miserably, he wanted to explain, well, why? Why did this happen? And you have the same mentality today, where people are like, well, why does socialism fail? Why does all of these things fail? And the reasons they give then come in the form of critical theory. And from that you have things like critical race theory. You have then new oppressor classes. You have an understanding of the hegemony, the white male Christian heterosexual hegemony, that it is because the culture is in the way of the success of communism, and therefore the fight must no longer be an economic battle. It must be a cultural battle, and once we overthrow the culture that is keeping communism at bay, we can then have communism, and the world will be a utopia, right? And so what is the culture? When Marxism is applied in the West, then the hegemonic culture is straight, white, Christian, male, right? But if you had to take Marxism to another country, then it would be different. Let's say you took it to a country in Africa, it would be black. Let's say Africa, it would be black, male, Xhosa, if they were the dominant power in South Africa, for example, or whatever the case might be, right? They identify the culture that is in place, that is in the way of successfully bringing in communism, and that becomes the enemy. And that culture needs to be overthrown in order for the utopia to be ushered in. And this is how it is, right? So there's this explanation. Why did it fail? And you see this reiterated. Now, what interesting thing for this, again, is the narcissistic, when you look at someone like Marx, which is why most people who like Marx, who like socialism, they are narcissists, right? When you get deeply, I had a conversation with a young man the other day who was attempting to convince me that socialism is the way, right? And when we talked for about 3 or 4 hours, and when I eventually got him to his final analysis, it was the most tyrannical thing that you could ever understand or imagine in your life. Utter tyranny. And his freedom was the only thing he was worried about. But nevertheless, his final analysis, when it was fully articulated, I said to him, look at this thing. Can you not see that this thing removes from you the freedom that you so desperately trying to preserve? There he sat. Oh, it actually does. He wasn't happy. So, ladies and gentlemen, here we go. The self-concept of a narcissist. So for arrogant or overt is grandiosity, a preoccupation with fantasies of outstanding success, an undue sense of uniqueness, feelings of entitlement, and seeming self-sufficiently. Now, again, another thing we need to understand, an overt narcissist can become a covert narcissist, and a covert narcissist can become an overt narcissist. The only difference is opportunity, right? So when the overt narcissist fails in being an overt narcissist, in other words, people tell him to get lost, he then becomes a covert narcissist, he or she. Now, for the most part, the overt narcissists are male, and for the most part, covert narcissists are female, which is very, very interesting. And if you look, for example, an arrogant or overt narcissist personality profile, you will see someone with very, very high extroversion and very low neuroticism, which is typical, or should I say, not extroversion, but assertiveness, right? Which is typical of males, right? Nevertheless, a shy or covert narcissist will be someone who is low in assertiveness and very, very high in neuroticism, right? And that's typically what you find in females, sort of thing, which is very interesting. But again, they can switch between both. Outstanding, unique sense of uniqueness, feelings of entitlement, seeming self-sufficiency. So again, he's technically codependent on other people for narcissistic supply. He's codependent, so he's actually not self-sufficient. He constantly needs other people to make him to prop him up, essentially. Feelings of entitlement. I deserve simply because of what I am. Do you see this in the world today? Because I am a woman, because I am black, because I am Latino, because I am disabled, because I am whatever, therefore I deserve X, Y, and Z. Right? Literally, there was a video that was released today of a woman completely freaking out at a perfect example. I think it was on the BBC or something like this, where a woman went to a shopping thing, a shop of some description, and they wouldn't let her in. They said, because you have to wear a mask, because COVID-19, all these things. She refused. She says, because I am a living woman, I can do whatever I want. Literally, this is her mentality. That is narcissism. I am entitled by virtue of merely existing. Because I merely exist, I there am entitled to do whatever I want. Not only am I entitled to do whatever I want, I am entitled to your time, I am entitled to your goods, I'm entitled to your money, I am entitled to all of your resources, by virtue of the fact that I merely exist. So, ladies and gentlemen, most celebrities are like this. Most celebrities, they are celebrities because they are celebrities. They are not. That's it. Does the Kardashians come to mind? Right? By the way, ladies and gentlemen, politicians, celebrities, public intellectuals are all narcissists. The heads of Fortune 500 companies, they are all narcissists. Every last one of them. Donald Trump was a narcissist. Barack Obama was a narcissist. They're all narcissists, by the way, right? And also very, very prevalent, right? Your pastor can be a narcissist. Your elder can be a narcissist. Any position of authority, of power, which puts you in the eye of people to, oh, look at him, he's going to help me, he's going to, have authority and have power. Those positions attract narcissists like you cannot believe, right? A narcissist is very, very comfortable in the position of a pastor. He does not believe for even 1 second that there is any God other than himself. Nevertheless, he is quite happy to pretend like he believes in a God, if it means that he can be in charge of a congregation and everyone is going to propitiate and come and ask him, please, can you give me advice in the world because you are from God and you have special insider knowledge about some things, right? And you see this even in average people. Right, so there's something that's called let me have a look here. I forget the blasted name of the thing. Right, we have here pronoun, what's called pronoun density. In a person's speech, pronoun density is when they make very regular use of the words me, my, I, myself. So those words that refer to the self, me, myself, my, I, that is high pronoun density that you are looking for, and high pronoun density of those words is an indication that you are dealing with someone who is a narcissist. right? So again, something that is becoming more and more prolific in the church, when you have something called standpoint theology, which means I'm going to judge the Bible according to my lived experience. Have you heard about lived experience? Your personal, this is the philosophy, this is the idea behind it. My lived experience gives me special insight into the mysteries of the world. Special insight that no one else can have, because I am me, and I had a specific, very special lived experience, and by virtue of this experience, I can then educate all of you lack of knowledge, you people who lack this insider special knowledge, right? Because of my lived experience. Whenever you hear someone say the following words, as a black woman, I think. As a white man, I think, although you don't hear white men saying that anymore because it's no longer politically acceptable. As a gay man, as a transgender, whatever, I think, I pontificate, I will reinterpret, right? Because I am blind and deaf and dumb and have to spend my entire life wheeling myself around in a wheelchair. Therefore, I am going to deliver. This gives me special knowledge, right? Literally, intersectionality. Intersectionality is absolute, unadulterated narcissism. Pure and simple. It is just, you can't believe it. As a gay, black, transgender, goose-phobic, hydrophobic, bald, queer, cis person, unicorn, I have a special insight, and everyone else must shut up. They cannot tell me about my lived experience. They cannot judge me because I have a special knowledge. Only I know what it is like to be like me, and I'm a special snowflake, and no one else can tell me anything. Do you see this today? Do you see this in the church today? Let me tell you something. In the past month, I have repeatedly asked people in my church community, on what basis do you think that this and this and this is correct? Every single, without fail, my opinion, I think, I feel, I suppose, I, me, I self, whatever. What is the Christian supposed to say? Thus saith the Lord. Yes? Thus saith the... Your opinion is irrelevant. Oh, but I'm into... And if you tell them your opinion is irrelevant, I want to know, how do you substantiate this from the scripture? How do you... From where do you get this idea that what you are doing is acceptable, that what you are thinking is right? Oh, but you know, I don't care about your experience. And when you tell them this, I am entitled to my opinions. No, you are not. You are not entitled to your opinions, because in Christianity, your duty is to the truth, and your opinion is your opinion, and truth has no bearing whatsoever on the opinions of the vast majority of people. And you see this all over the place. And again, tell them that they... I told him, I said, you people are acting like, you behaving like narcissists. Ooh. That went down like a double thick garlic milkshake. Wonderful. Fantasies of outstanding success. Again, the prosperity gospel. Because God is going to give you everything, right? I am his special chosen, right? I speak in tongues. I can slay in the spirit, right? I can give prophecy, right? Shy, covert narcissist, right? The self-concept. Inferiority, morose, self-doubt. Marked propensity towards feeling ashamed. Fragility. Ladies and gentlemen, fragility. Relentless search for glory and power. Marked sensitivity to criticism and realistic setbacks. Ladies and gentlemen, have you heard about white fragility? White fragility is the classic example of projecting the individual's inner sense of shame and fragility and inability to regulate their own internal emotions and projecting it out onto someone else. And you see people do this all the time. You see women do this all the time, right? Oh, the man doesn't want to talk with his feelings because he's insecure. And they completely bypass the explanation that maybe he just does not feel what you feel. Right? Maybe he just doesn't care. No. How can he not care? How can he not feel exactly the same way I feel? Exactly the same way. He's just denying it. He is repressing his emotions because the patriarchy has taught him how to repress his. Do you not hear this from feminism all the time? They cannot accept that men and women are different. We deal with emotions and things in a different way. No, this is a complete projection upon men, the feelings of insecurity and inferiority that women generally feel. That is the basis of feminism and feminist thought. And the same thing with all of this anti-racist, anti-white sentiments that you sing out there, this white fragility, this critical race theory. You will notice they're always criticizing someone else, never themselves. What have I done to be successful? Did I do whatever? And over here, marked sensitivity to criticism and setbacks. So, for example, persecutory delusions, in other words. So, for example, the other day, again, I was talking to a woman, black woman, Caribbean woman, and she was complaining. I'm going to give you an example because I was telling her this whole racism, it's nonsense. I'm going to tell you about my experience. My experience. No facts, no data, no nothing. I'm going to tell you about my experience. Now, this is the narcissist at work here. I'm going to tell you about my experience, and regardless of how much you have read, how much you have attempted to educate yourself on this subject, you must just take my word for it. Because I'm going to tell you a story. My lived experience, my one anecdotal experience is sufficient to overturn everything that you know. So this is a story. She tells me, my daughter is going to gymnastics. And the teacher said to her that she must either tie up her braids, right? Her braids secured very, very tightly, or she must remove them. This is racist because braids are part of my culture and all that rubbish. First of all, braids are not part of your culture. First of all, braids is an item of vanity that was invented later. It is not part of your culture. Okay? Go to Africa, to the traditional, because she's all about all my African tribes. I want to know about my African tribes, my African ancestors. Go and look at your African ancestors, your tribes that are still living in the traditional way. They're bald. The women are bald. There's nothing, right? They might have the things on the lips. They might have all kinds of other things. But this braids is a new invention. Okay? This braids is a completely new invention. Go look at, if you go to South Africa, whatever the case might be, the old Bushmen, the old Khoi, and all of these kinds of people. No braids. No braids. Braids are a modern invention in order to satisfy the vanity of black women. In the same way that hair coloring and hairstyling is not a cultural thing, it is something invented to satisfy the vanity of white women. That is all it is. All right, to make them feel better about themselves because of a propensity to feel ashamed and constantly have all kinds of issues with the way they feel. It's constantly self-esteem this and self-esteem that and self-esteem the next thing. Self, me, all the time. Self-esteem, how I feel, how I think, what I want. And the world is interpreted through my very narrow little lens of what I think and feel, and hell to pay if the world, so Christians will again understand this. Try telling a woman, sweetie pie, please put on some more clothing before you come to church. Don't come dressed like a prostitute. What happens? What happens? Sweetie pie, if you're not in business, don't advertise. What happens? I have the right to come to church naked. Naked. Swinging on a pole, and no one must say anything. Is the attitude, basically. Right? Try and telling them this makeup, this way. They will give every excuse. Oh, because society tells me I must wear makeup, otherwise I'm this and that, and society this and this and that. Excuse me, what happened to your personal autonomy? What happened to your ability to say, no, I'm not going to do it? There's no personal autonomy. It's always, oh, I'm the victim, right? Fragility. Marked relentless search for glory and power. Because remember, the relentless search, so a shy is a shy failed to be a narcissist. So the grandiose narcissist is very successful. Preoccupation with fantasies of outstanding success. This is the only reason why a grandiose, overt narcissist will be successful, is because they want to align with their fantasies. They want to fulfill their fantasies of themselves. A covert narcissist is got a relentless search for glory and power, because they are trying to they're trying to move over from shy over to overt. The goal of every covert narcissist is to become an overt narcissist. Okay? And this is why in the world today you see nothing but the relentless pursuit of power. This is the sole existence for feminism, for the black consciousness movement, white supremacy, you name it. It is the relentless search for glory and power. That is all it is. So any power, black power, woman power, white supremacy, blue eye supremacy, football supremacy, sports supremacy. Whenever you see people, this sport is the best, no, that sport is the best, and they will go out on the street and beat each other up. This is narcissism at work. This is pure narcissism by proxy. Right? I am grandiose by proxy because my team is the most wonderful, and because I support this team, therefore I am wonderful. You understand? I am grandiose by proxy, and I'm willing to go out into the street and shoot someone who supports the opposite team. Is basically what it is. Relentless search for glory and power. This is you see this. This is all you see. 100% of all acts of activism these days are all Marxist search for power and glory for a specific group. Right? Fat shaming is the same thing. Rather than eat properly and be healthy and attend to any medical condition that you might have, no, we need to literally redefine the concept of beauty in order to include people who are morbidly, absolutely obese to the point they're about to have a heart attack in the next 5 minutes. Right? So, interpersonal relationships. Right. Let's adjust this there. Right. Numerous but shallow relationships, intense need for tribute from others. Honey, how do I look? Right? Intense need for tribute from others. This is why people take selfies, ladies and gentlemen. This is the obsession with selfies on the internet. Because you put up a selfie, right? Even if you look ugly as a dog. Now, here's the interesting relationship. You have the two narcissists. You put up a photo. You put up a photo. You will, if you want to get likes on Facebook, put up a photo of yourself. But put up an essay or something meaningful, something worthwhile, something thought-provoking, philosophically deep. One maybe person will look at it, won't even like, they won't share, nothing. But you put up a picture of a girl eating a banana with the tops halfway down, showing almost the whole, all her tits. 5 million likes. Wonderful. She's so beautiful. Fantastic. Or a man, muscles next to his car, his Ferrari. Look at me. I'm the man. like, smile, love, whatever, right? This girl is getting narcissistic supply. Now, the collapsed, the other narcissists are going on there and say, oh, you're so wonderful. Why? They want to show their virtue. Look at me. I'm supporting this other person. I'm so righteous. Supporting my friend. But also, this is a transaction. If I like your photo, then when I put a photo of myself, even if I look like a dog, you must like and also tell me how wonderful I am, how wonderful I look, amazing. Even if you look at this photo and you're like, what the hell happened to you? I'm amazing. Look at me with this plate of sushi. Or my breakfast. Look at my dog's breakfast. How wonderful. Like and share, okay? Memes, things that get instant likes. Straight up. Right? Scorn for others. Often masked by pseudo humility, right? So whatever humility they demonstrate is false. They're not actually humble, right? And they are absolutely brilliant at faking humility. Lack of empathy, inability to genuinely participate in group activities, valuing of children over spouse in family life. If you want to know, ladies and gentlemen, whether you have married a narcissist, there we go. They value the children over the spouse. So if you are a husband, and I think for the most part husbands feel this, if you're a husband and now you have children and suddenly you are ignored completely by your wife, she completely changes. And it doesn't go away, right? It is natural within the first few months, whatever, the baby's small, needs every waking moment of the mother's time. Well, you can understand, fair enough. But if this doesn't go away, then there's a pretty good chance that you are married to a narcissist. Why? Because and this is also a sign of what is about to come. The mother or the father, whichever one does this, is about to live their failures. The child is going to be a proxy, a second life of the parent. The parent is going to attempt to live the life they always wanted through the child, and in that process they are going to turn the child themselves into a narcissist because they do not allow the child to individuate and become an individual person. All right? Yeah, and you see this a lot. But a lot of people, especially women, encourage this. They actually encourage this, and men do it too. Men do it too, but I'm just saying, in most cases, it is women that tend to do this, right? The interpersonal relationship of a shy, covert narcissist. Inability to genuinely depend on others and trust them, right? So, I dated a girl like this. My goodness. Chronic envy of others' talents, possessions, capacity for deep object relations, and lack of regard for general boundaries. Disregard for others' time, refusal to answer letters. Right? So this really is because, again, the reason why they are envious of the other people's talents, possessions, capacity for deep object relations, all these kinds of things, they're not interested in those things in and of themselves. They're interested in them because the people over here generally have these kinds of things, talents and possessions and stuff. They don't have the they don't have the capacity for object relations, but in their mind these things are allowing other people to gain narcissistic supply, and therefore they are envious of it, because if they had it, they would be able to receive narcissistic supply, attention, praise, pat on the back, all of these kinds of things, right? Extremely chronic envy, right? What does the Bible say about chronic envy? And this is exactly what you have with the whole victim culture. Again, victim culture, intersectionality literally teaches you to seek out all the ways in which you are oppressed and victimized and the underdog and stuff like that. It's literally a psychological method of teaching you how to be as chronically envious of other people as possible, right? So when people say that feminism is a species of penis envy, they are actually not wrong. They are actually not wrong. The reason why, if it was not penis envy, then you would not see feminism encouraging women to behave like men. Right? It's that simple. When you look at feminism and feminists and stuff like that, forget about what they preach, because again, remember, there's a manipulation of language. They will tell you one thing which sounds wonderful. Woman must not be oppressed and woman must be free. And of course, who would disagree? Who would disagree with this? No one would, in their right mind, would disagree with this. Nevertheless, what does the Bible say? By their fruit you will know them. In their actions, what do you see? That you see an active discrimination against the masculine and, right, against, hang on, actually, let me rephrase. An active discrimination against individuals who are masculine in order to uplift individuals who are not masculine as if they were masculine. Right? So here's the interesting thing, right? If you look in the news and there's going to be someone praised and whatever the case might be, so there's a hierarchy in the LGBT system, right? For example, you almost never hear about LGBT men. That is a woman that goes from being a woman to being a man. You almost never hear about it, do you? It is always a man who becomes a woman and is then lifted up, or a women are lifted up. Woman can and this is the bigotry of lowered expectations. In order for a man to receive praise, whatever the case, he literally has to invent the cure for cancer. But if a woman so much as farts in a different direction, praise and wonderful, stunning and brave, right? Because the woman participated, contributed, whatever. It's a completely lowered standard for women to achieve before they are treated as if they just found the cure for cancer, right? They don't actually have to find the cure for cancer. They can just participate in the process, right? And so you see this sort of thing. And again, further, do you see lesbians? People don't talk much about lesbians, do they? No. They may be right at the beginning of the LGBT, but they are completely ignored for the most part. And you can talk to lesbians and they'll tell you that. You can talk to lesbians and they'll tell you all about it. There is a hierarchy. The gay man is above and the masculine female is suppressed, is put down. There's a chronic envy and a desire to subvert, right? Because it's like, if according to the ideology there's no difference between men and women, then why are you still by your actions uplifting women and telling them to be like men. No, you must go and fight, and you must go and be a man, basically. In fact, the woman's value is judged according to how much she can be like a man. But if a woman actually wants to be a woman and wants to have children, wants to have a husband, wants to look after her family, she's treated like an imbecile, like someone who is willingly becoming a slave, right? It's really extraordinary, right? Chronic envy of others' talents, possessions, and carry deep. So yeah, refusal to answer letters. So again, people who are really, they'll say, oh, I forgot to return your phone call. Oh, I forgot to respond to your message. Oh, no, it's narcissistic. They don't care. And disregard for others' time. So these people, they cannot be bothered to be on time. They literally, everything revolves around them. When I can do this, when I can do that, when I can do whatever. And again, so for example, you see, again with feminism, right? Like that one episode where some woman went to the House of Parliament with a baby. These people have better things to do than to clap and applaud how brave and courageous you are for coming to work with your child, with your screaming child. Why don't you stop being a narcissist and go home and tend to your child's needs? You see, the child is being used as an ornament of narcissistic supply. Right? This is what children have become for many people. The children are an ornament of narcissistic supply, a means of narcissistic supply to these people, right? When the children is an inconvenience, they get aborted. You kill them, no problem. But when the child is convenient, when I want to show how wonderful I am because I can fall pregnant and men cannot fall pregnant. Have you noticed this constant insistence that men cannot handle as much pain as women? Women, we can handle more pain. We can multitask. We are omnipotent. Why? Because you have a vagina. That's it. That's the only, because I am a woman, I'm therefore the be all and end all, no matter what. And not only, I want my cake, and I want your cake, and I want his cake. Why? Because I deserve it. Because I deserve it. Not only can I have children, but I can be a career woman. I can go and have my career. Never mind that you are neglecting your children in the process. And you're going to raise little psychopaths, right? The nanny is going to look after them. But you are pursuing. You just want to be, oh, you are so wonderful. How do you manage to have children and this career? How do you find time to balance all of this? It's because I'm a narcissist and I want, because actually I'm failing. Because either you cannot serve two masters. Either you serve your children or you have a career. One of them is going to be neglected. And men have known this since the dawn of time. Which is why they need wives. Someone needs to be at home because children are full-time. They not only require feeding and cleaning and the house maintenance, stuff like that, but the children require an education. Mothers should be educating their children, not the state. Right? The most successful cultures in the world are those who have a tradition of secondary education, which means when the child goes to school, they receive an education, but when they come home, the parents get involved in the education and expand on their education. This is precisely why the Jewish people are so prosperous. No matter how many times they are persecuted, no matter where in the world they go, they are always prosperous. Why? Because they have a tradition that in the home, we educate our children in our philosophies, in our traditions, in our morals, in all of these things, and that is why they are successful. But the feminism has taught the woman that none of this is necessary, that will be done by the nanny or the state, right? The school. And while they're doing that, you can go and you can get your narcissistic supply because because you are Wonder Woman, Superwoman, you can have a job and successfully raise children. You are not successfully raising your children. End of story. There's a reason for that, right? This idea that women can do everything men can do, and if not better, is rubbish. Men have their strengths and weaknesses, women have their strengths and weaknesses. This is narcissism. This cultural relativism, that all cultures are the same, no matter how degenerate a culture is. If the culture promotes crime, promotes violence against women, if the culture promotes violence against children, if the culture promotes gangs, if the culture promotes all of these degenerate things, if the culture promotes single motherhood, no problem. It is just as good as cultures that promote hard work, responsibility, delayed gratification, etc. I did a video on that just the other day, did I not? That's not, it's narcissism. Now, narcissism can be exhibited either at the level of the individual or at the level of the group, which is then narcissism by proxy of the group, which is why people who usually what happens is collapsed narcissists will come into a group and try to get their identity from the group. Because they themselves cannot establish grandiosity on their own, they will then by proxy get grandiosity through a group which is so successful and so wonderful. And that is why you then have groupthink and all of that sort of nonsense, right? Social adaptation. The social adaptation of an overt narcissist, grandiose, socially charming, often very successful, right? Otherwise he could not, if he's not successful, he cannot sustain his grandiosity, right? This is why narcissistic men do nothing but work. Consistent hard work done mainly to seek admiration. So these men out there, Fortune 500, Wall Street, all of these men who neglect every aspect of their life in order to work, in order to make millions, this is why they do that. All right? They don't want because anything else. They want admiration. They want respect. So for example, a narcissist is not satisfied with having a Ferrari. He wants the most expensive Ferrari on the planet, right? And he doesn't care that it is a Ferrari. You understand what I'm saying? All he cares about is the admiration that he gets for having the most expensive thing. He would buy a tin of baked beans for 20 million pounds if that means that he is the one that could afford to pay that money for a tin of baked beans. That is the narcissist for you, right? The grandiose. That's how it works. That's why they work the way they do. So when feminists and women in general are saying, oh, women need to be in those positions, there's an ignorance there. First of all, they think it's easy. It's not, because these men work like dogs to the neglect and the detriment of every other aspect of their lives. Fortune 500, all of these men, they're all narcissists. Grandiose narcissists. Trump, all of these people, they are narcissists. Okay? To the utter neglect of the family. Okay? But these narcissistic feminists, oh, I deserve that just because I'm a woman. Never mind that you actually have to work like hell. You have to work like hell in order to get that. But again, you're going to see if the first of all, the interest is superficial, right? The interest, they don't actually care about. They want the status that comes with that. They are not the interest is superficial, which is why, for example, you see with feminism, they're saying, oh, we need more women in in the STEM fields, science, technology, engineering, mathematics. They do not actually care. Women do not care about these positions in themselves. Men go to mathematics because they actually enjoy mathematics. Engineering because they actually enjoy engineering. Women don't care about these things, generally speaking. Otherwise, there would be more women in it. right? They don't give a damn. The only reason why feminism wants a woman to be a physicist rather than a plumber is because the physicist carries with it lots of opportunity for narcissistic supply, whereas if you are a plumber, nothing. It's an object of scorn. It is why feminists, you never hear them talking about the fact that men are overrepresented in construction, in sanitation, all of these things. They don't care about that because it doesn't achieve narcissism. If tomorrow, let's say you could flip a switch and the hypothetical universe would magically come into existence. If tomorrow, right, the janitor, the street sweeper could make 50 million a year and was highly respected for being the best janitor, it was a position of great renown to be a janitor, feminism would complain that there's not enough women janitors. Simple as that. Or not enough women in sanitation, or not enough women laying bricks, or whatever the case might be. You would see that feminism would change its tune straight away. All right. Oh, the sun has to keep whitewashing me. The sun is oppressive. It's whitewashing me, a poor Latino. Right? My goodness. Yeah, it's too much. Oh, look how white I'm looking. Oh dear, the sun is racist. It's attempting to ethnically cleanse me as a Latino. How terrible. I need to go and protest on the streets. Right. Done mainly to seek admiration. Pseudo sublimation. So sublimation is a concept where, let's say you feel angry and you want to beat someone's brains out because they've annoyed you. Sublimation is where you refrain from beating their brains out and you go instead and you channel that anger into something constructive. That's called sublimation, is where negative impulses and things like that are restrained, are controlled, and the energy from that is channeled into something constructive. So a narcissist won't do that, will pretend like he is, but behind the scenes at home he will, kill your dog or roast your cat or something like that. Intense ambition and a preoccupation with appearances. Right? I mean, now, the covert, nagging aimlessness, shallow vocational commitment, dilettante-like attitude, multiple but superficial interests, right? Chronic boredom. Ladies and gentlemen, over here, chronic boredom. If you look at, now again, it might sound like I'm picking on the girls, but I'm not picking on the girls because you see this with men as well, right? But the number one reason for divorce, in the world is women saying that they are simply dissatisfied. That's it. I'm dissatisfied. Right? Chronic boredom. This is why there's incessant shopping. So again, men do this as well. So men who are by the way, men shop habitually as well, just like women do, that have personality problems. Just what they buy is different. So for example, if you look in a woman's cupboard and she's got 50, 60, 70, 100, 300, I've known in my own family a woman that have owned pairs of shoes in the hundreds, bottles of perfume in the hundreds as well. This is very materialistic, right? Very materialistic. And men as well, that they have a record collection or something like that. There's a difference between being genuinely interested in a collection versus I'm buying to make myself feel better. Nonsensical things that are So collection is wrong, but yeah, it's just wasting money on stuff that you don't need because it makes you feel better. So you're buying a new, for example, like a man buys a new car every 3 to 6 months, right? For example, he's always changing jobs because he gets bored easily and stuff like that. So men and women do the same thing, but they purchase or shift around differently. Chronic boredom, aesthetic taste, often ill-informed and imitative. Think about the feminist version of Ghostbusters, right? The feminist version of Ghostbusters, the feminist version of Ocean's 11, right? With Ocean's 8 with Sandra Bullock. Ill-informed and imitative. They do not know how to create anything themselves. They have to either imitate. They imitate and deform that which already exists. All right. So this is what you get. So again, social justice warriors with race swapping. So if a Marvel comic is actually black, they will make him white, or if he's white, they will make him black. If he's a male, they'll make him female, and all or gay, or whatever the case might be, because rather than be faithful to the source material, they will manipulate these things for their own interests, for statements to show how righteous and wonderful they are. So yeah, nagging, aimlessness, shallow vocational commitment. You will not succeed if you're like this, right? So people who are not succeeding in business and their work, these type of people are usually completely useless. They will live on benefits, stuff like, and things like that. It's multiple but superficial interests. I love this, and then in 5 minutes they're bored and they move on to the next thing, right? So you see this today. There's always a new people who chase fads, right? People who chase fads. Today it's YouTube, tomorrow it's Pinterest, the next day it's TikTok, the next day it's something else, and they can even cycle back, right? Constant. So they're not interested in the thing itself. The interest is superficial. It's how can I get narcissistic supply? So a perfect example of this is the fashion industry, right? Today this dress is in fashion. Tomorrow it's not in fashion. The next thing is in fashion, and now every woman wants it, right? Because now that's fashion. It has nothing. They're not actually interested in fashion, right? They're interested in narcissistic supply. They want to be the most beautiful, the most wonderful. They want people to look at them. Oh, you are the Cinderella. You are a princess. How wonderful you look. How amazing, right? So they're not actually interested, because you can tell the difference between a person who is confident in themselves. They dress how they dress. That's it. They don't care about fashion. They dress how they dressed, for comfort, for whatever the case might be. Whereas someone like this, who is a narcissist, is constantly chasing the latest fashion, the latest fad, the latest whatever. Why? Because their interest is not in the fad itself. So something they could have liked yesterday, like loved, I so loved that pair of shoes. The following day, oh, it's disgusting. That's so lost. That's so 24 hours ago, right? Right. Narcissism. This is, again, religious fads. Religious fads. Social justice. Prosperity gospel. Standpoint theology. All these kinds of things, right? People today I am a spiritual Buddhist. Tomorrow I am a Hindu. The New Age movement is full of collapsed narcissists. The New Age movement is probably the quintessential gathering of collapsed narcissists and borderlines and whatever on the planet. We're so spiritual and so holy and so virtuous because we're all vegan, right? The animal's spirit. I'm gonna. So another one. There was a church, Christian church, again. You can tell, full of Narcissus, where they brought plants and they put it up on the pulpit and they were apologizing to the plants. They were apologizing and asking the plants for forgiveness for the pollution and stuff. This is delusion. This is narcissism, right? All of these Christians going around, especially whites, these white liberals. I'm so sorry for my privilege. I'm so sorry that I haven't done more. I promise from now on, I'm going to do more to uplift my black brothers and sisters. And I'm going to show my solidarity by doing blackout on my Facebook and doing literally bugger all else. But because I'm sending good thoughts and I'm praying, right? Prayer hands. I'm so spiritual and so righteous, right? These are Christians, these white liberals, okay? Mostly whites, right? Because obviously because of the rhetoric, right? Mostly whites. I'm so sorry. I had a white person come to me. I think I've told the story, right? Because I'm a Latino, apologizing to me. I'm so sorry for the oppression that my people have put on you. I looked at him like, have you lost your mind, right? You have nothing to do with it. But that to always make everything about me. Always make everything about me. It's all about me, right? How do I feel? How do I think? How do I signal how righteous and what? I'm so sorry, right? People, this is a pseudo humility. It looks like the person is debasing themselves, but what they are actually doing is aggrandizing themselves to show how righteous and repentant they are. This is Phariseeism. This is literally the sin of the Pharisee praying in the streets, how righteous I am. I read my Bible 50 times a day, right? From cover to cover. And I understand it somehow, right? And I can quote, right? I can quote this one. I can quote that one. I'm the one. I'm so righteous. And please accept my apology for all the slavery that happened in Brazil, where you were born, and how that must have affected you, you know, and I'm like, dude, get lost. And here's the interesting thing. This is how you know you're dealing with a narcissist, because when I said to the person, listen, I said, you are delusional. You have nothing to apologize, because what does the Bible say? You will not condemn the son for the sins of his fathers. I said, you've got nothing. You are so grandiose and narcissistic that you think that the fact that your mere white existence has anything that affects me at all is a delusion. It's a delusion, right? You've got nothing. I said, you don't even live on the same continent as me, and you want to apologize? And the narcissistic rage, he was then trying to tell me what I should think and what I should believe about the situation, the injustice of it all, and I should accept his ever so humble apology, right? This is just classic, beautiful narcissism, right? I eventually blocked him from Facebook because he started to just irritate the crap out of me. You couldn't talk to him, right? He was absolutely insistent that he had to apologize for his white privilege, regardless of whether I wanted him to or not, okay? Ethics, standards, and ideals, right? Speaking of which, caricatured modesty, pretended contempt for money in real life. So they will pretend that they don't like money, but they like money. They want money. Give me the money, right? Your prosperity gospel people love their money, right? They love their money, but they pretend that they are humble. I use this jumbo jet for the Lord's work. That Ferrari is for the Lord's work, to show you that if you just think it and imagine it, you can have it as well. If you pray hard, if you don't have a Ferrari like me, it means you did not pray as hard as I did to get a Ferrari, to get a Bentley, right? idiosyncratically and unevenly moral. So they tend to show preference. Their moral standards change. It is good for you, but it's not good for me. So again, in the if you look at the Black consciousness movement, we can say that the white man is the devil, is the Satan, is arrogant, is this and this and this and that. So basically, in the Black consciousness movement, a black person is allowed to say, a black person, a gay person, and a woman are allowed to say whatever the hell they want about the opposite race, about the opposite sex, about the opposite gender, whatever they want, and they get away with it. But if the other people do the same thing, they will get arrested. Basically, these days you can get arrested. Okay, you are not allowed to say anything against women because they're so wonderful and saintly. You cannot say anything against a black person because that's racist. He could be breaking into your house with the sole intention of killing you and raping your wife. But if you defend yourself, you are a racist. You're a racist. End of story, right? You can have a Latino walking down your road with a machine gun strapped to his back. But if you arrest him, it's profiling. It's racial profiling. How can it be anything else, right? How can it be anything else, right? And if you are, if you, cisgendered male, the mere fact that you prefer biological woman to transgender woman proves definitely, conclusively, that you are transphobic. The fact that you want what you want proves that you are racist and bigoted against the thing that you don't want, even though you have no control over what you do or do not want because biology. This is it's good for you, but not for me. A different standard for me. Why? Because I'm God. Because I'm God. Because I'm the divine chosen one. I'm the oppressed one that everything must slide. There's no justice for everyone, for me, but not for thee, right? Wonderful. Unevenly moral. So there's no moral fiber whatsoever, right? It's all about what they can get, right? If I can get, socialism is wonderful when I can when I've got nothing. Capitalism when I've got everything. Okay. Apparent enthusiasm for social political affairs. At the head of all of the activist movements, feminism, Black Lives Matter, global warming, climate change, Al Gore, all of these people are narcissists. All Greta Thunberg is a narcissist. Her parents are narcissists because they are, again, it's child abuse by proxy. Remember when I said you, because both of them, even though they were kind of famous, they weren't really famous, but now they can be cosmically famous because their child is a household name, right? So it's narcissism by proxy. It's child abuse, right? Greta Thunberg's parents have not only created a narcissist, but they themselves are narcissists. This is grandiosity by proxy. Apparent enthusiasm for social political affairs. Look at me, I'm so righteous because I care about the plight of the elephant somewhere, you know, and all these kinds of things, even though I've never seen an elephant and I don't actually care, you know, to do anything about it. I'm going to make a Facebook post about it, and that'll change the world. That's magical thinking, by the way. Because I think it, therefore it will be so. I'm God. I mean, why not? Because I thought it. That is the way it is. It's something that's very common. It's magical thinking. So I was mean, let's say I was mean to my mother, and then my mother dies, and then I'm like, oh, it's all my fault. Really? It's all your fault, really. That's narcissism, right? It's another manifestation of narcissism, because again, you need to remember the narcissist believes themselves to be omnipotent. And therefore, if they so much as think it, even the bad things are their fault if they can gain narcissistic supply. Everything is my fault. Everything is it's my fault. Of course, I'm omnipotent because I had the thought and I didn't think right. I didn't pray hard enough. That's why it went bad. Because if I am not there praying about it and doing the things, then everything is going to fall apart without me. Right? Everything's going to fall apart me. I'm the only one. Right? Forget about empowering other people to learn and to study and to become self-sufficient. No, no, no. I'm the only one. Right? Mystical thinking. Magical thinking. The secret. If you put your thoughts into the universe, literally the entire universe will bend to your will and give you what you want. Right? It is the basis of the prosperity gospel as well. Right? If you just pray hard enough, God will bend to your will and give you whatever you want, no matter how stupid it is. Whether you deserve it or not is never in question. The only thing you need to do to deserve it is to think. Because you are God. You are God sending positive thoughts to all the suffering people. Right? It's narcissism, because your thoughts are meaningless. It's your actions that count. Your thoughts are meaningless. Classic sign of narcissism. Oh, but I had good intentions. Your intentions, right, are irrelevant. If the person is now dead or suffering worse as a result of your good intentions, then your intentions are irrelevant, right? It's a perfect example. Good intentions is a good example of magical thinking, right? Because I had such good intentions, I'm so surprised that everything went to hell in a handbasket. It's because your intentions are irrelevant. It's about what is true. It's about what is in fact the case. And if you tell and if you don't care about the person's intent, what do? You get narcissistic rage, because now the reality is coming against their magical thinking. It's like, excuse me, your magical thinking isn't as magical as you thought it was. And so when that reality hits them in the face, they have a complete narcissistic rage. Oh, but it's the thought that counts. How dare you be so judgmental? How dare you? You're so judgmental. You're not like Jesus. Jesus would be loving. He would let me do whatever I want, as long I'm going to go to heaven because I had good intentions. Right? That's what you get. Right? Yeah, socio-political affairs. Readiness to collapsed, right? Or covert narcissist. Readiness to shift values to gain favor. There we go. Right? It's now suddenly okay for black people to riot in the middle of COVID-19. So COVID-19, we must shut down. Everyone goes to jail if you go out in groups for COVID-19. But now, because all the black people are upset and all of the white liberals are upset, they are allowed to go out in their thousands and thousands and to loot and riot and protest, and suddenly that's okay. You are not allowed to visit your sick grandmother in hospital. You cannot, for under any circumstance, visit your sick grandmother in hospital. You cannot see your newborn baby. You cannot have Bible study in your own house. But no problem, no problem. You can go out by the thousands as long as you are an angry black person or white liberal. That is it. And why do the politicians allow it? Because they want narcissistic supply, because they don't care about black people. They just want everyone to think, oh, look how virtuous and wonderful they are, because they're sticking up for the black people. They're doing their anti-racism work. They're so righteous, right? Pathological lying. I mean, COVID-19, right? The whole COVID-19 issue. Materialistic lifestyle. Again, I mean, it's about the bling, it's about the cars, it's about the, you know, why am I protesting? I'm not protesting because I actually want a better education. I'm not protesting because I actually want a better life, because I want freedom, because I want responsibility, because whatever the case might be. I am rioting and I'm protesting because my smartphone is not as nice as your smartphone. My genes are not as nice as your genes, etc., etc. Delinquent tendencies, there we go. The whole riot situation described right there. Complete delinquent tendencies. The recent riots in the wake of George Floyd. Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something right now. Everyone went out to riot. What was their reason? Because of George Floyd. I'm telling you right now, these people do not care about George Floyd. They don't care about George Floyd. They don't care. I will repeat it. No one actually cares about George Floyd. No one actually cares about the fact that black people are being shot by police. The only thing they care about is narcissistic supply. And they will do whatever is required to get narcissistic supply and to get money. Right? Boo hoo hoo, my son just got shot, I'm so sad. GoFundMe. Yeah, do you see that happening? Every time someone gets shot, never mind that he was a criminal. You are not even allowed to say that he was a criminal. How dare you? You're blaming the victim. You're blaming the victim. Because the victim has no moral responsibility whatsoever. He's a product of his environment. But nevertheless, every time someone gets shot, there is a GoFundMe page and 50 million gullible idiots just throw money at the problem, and the family walks away $30,000, $50,000, $60,000, $100,000, $200,000 richer. People have caught on to the fact. Narcissists, psychopaths, and think about who George Floyd was. George Floyd was a criminal. He was a narcissist, probably a psychopathic narcissist, because George Floyd broke in, home invasion, beat up the pregnant woman, beat up the pregnant woman that was in there and absconded with the things. He was most likely, he was exactly what we are describing here, right? And how does George Floyd, remember, how does a person become that way? Because the parents are that way. These are crocodile tears, ladies and gentlemen. They know that if I cry, oh, I'm so, they're going to get money. They know it. It's become a hustle. It's become a hustle. And all of the other narcissists, so these narcissists are relying on the fact that you are a narcissist because you think you want to show how righteous and wonderful and virtuous you are. Look at me, I gave money. I'm protesting. I changed my profile on Facebook. I'm talking about it in my church ad nauseum. How indignant I am. Racism. Terrible, right? White people, terrible. White privilege, right? I'm virtuous. How virtuous I am. And then the white people, yes, we agree. We agree. I'm so sorry. I bow before you. I prostrate myself as the most righteous white person on the planet to show you how anti-racist I am. Yes, preach. We are the most evil people on the planet. You have to be a narcissist to be the most evil person on the planet. To be the most evil race on the planet. You have to be a narcissist to think that you are literally the worst on the planet. That's a narcissist. Narcissists like to believe that they are the most badass. Right? Let's pray for racism. Everything is racism everywhere. Whether it's true or not, no one cares whether it's actually true or not. No one cares. And if it's true, how much does it actually affect people? No one cares. No one even knows, because they don't do the research. They don't look at the statistics. They don't know whether this narrative is true or is not true. They simply believe it. They simply believe it because CNN said so. Inordinate ethnic and moral relativism. There we go. Inordinate ethnic and moral relativism. Irreverence towards authority. Need I say more? We want to smash the patriarchy. Get rid of the man, right? The cisgender, heteronormative, white, Christian patriarchy with 2 testicles. All of his testicles are intact. You know, he's the evil one. Right? Irreverence towards authority. By the way, this is feminism as well. Women's ordination, ladies and gentlemen, for those of you who are Christian, women's ordination. There you have it. Right? Because for some reason, having a vagina means that you magically now have something to offer, a position that God designed exclusively for males and not for females. Because why? Because my vagina. That's why. I get this distinct feeling I'm going to get into trouble for this video. Love and sexuality. Marital instability, cold and greedy seductiveness, ooh. Extramarital affairs and promiscuity, uninhibited sexual life. That is the overt, the grandiose, right? So have we seen marriage go out the window? Have we seen people complain about marriage? Do we see greed, cold and greedy seductiveness? Extramarital affairs go up in women as well. Studies have shown that the only difference between the adultery of males and adultery of females is one thing: opportunity. The only reason why men are commit adultery more than women is because for some reason it seems that men have more opportunity to commit adultery than women do, right? And the reason men have more ability to commit adultery than women do, interestingly enough, has more to do with women than it does with the men themselves. Because if you want to be attractive to another woman, wear a wedding ring. Yes. Why? Because there's a thing that they want what they don't have. Yes. Inability to remain in love. Impaired capacity for viewing. Right, this is very important. Impaired capacity for viewing the romantic partner as a separate individual with his or her own interests. Right? You have to like what I like. You have to feel what I feel. You have to, and it's ridiculous. You cannot sustain this. Right? The individual will not even pretend to be interested in what you are interested in, but bloody hell, if you for even a second don't like the same music or the same movie that they like, oh, off with your head. With his or her own interest, rights, values, right? No, you must think what I think, you must believe what I believe, you must agree with what I agree with, otherwise all hell breaks loose in divorce, most likely. Inability to generally comprehend the incest taboo. So, if there is incest in the family, most likely covert narcissist. Here's an interesting now. This is not only actually having sex with your own children. This is treating your child as if your child is your husband or your wife. Have you ever heard a woman say to her little boy of 5 years old, "You're the man of the house now that your daddy is dead"? And the woman will literally treat her sons and expect them to take the place of the father, to become the man of the house. You get the same thing the other way as well, where the children basically have to take the role of the missing parent, right? By the way, do we see this in society, this problem in societies where single parent households are the norm? Do we or do we not? I have to work to support my mother. I have to do this because of my mother. I have to do that because of my mother. So basically what you're saying is you are not your mother's child, you are your mother's husband. That is the incest taboo, right? Just because you're not actually having sex with her doesn't mean she is not treating you like her husband. Occasional sexual perversions. So there we go. I don't need to go further on that. Unfortunately, too many people will immediately understand that. So yeah, it's not necessary, but yeah, occasional sexual perversions. It's, bringing men home all the time, women home all the time, or doing funky things and stuff like that. Right. Cognitive style. Overt narcissist, grandiose not, impressively knowledgeable, decisive and opinionated, right? Often strikingly articulated, egocentric perception of reality. Everything revolves around me. Only I can do it. I am without me, the business would fail, the church would fail, the everything, the gospel would not go out to the world if it wasn't for me. Okay. A love of language, because again, they like to manipulate. They like to manipulate language. Okay. Fondness for shortcuts to the acquisition of knowledge, right? So I've read a book, now I know everything. I've read how to be the best in 12 steps. Suddenly, I can run a business, right? Love of language, fondness of shortcuts to acquisition of knowledge. Just because I watched History Channel, now I know everything about history. All right. Covert narcissist. Knowledge often limited to trivia, otherwise known as headline intelligence. So basically, I know because BBC told me. I know because CNN told me. There's no depth of knowledge whatsoever. Forgetful of details, especially names. Right? Because why? Well, why are you gonna... If you are God, if you are a god, a king, a queen of the world, why should you remember the names of undeserving peasants who are beneath you? Right? Impaired in the capacity for learning new skills. Absolutely, for some reason, cannot take on new skills. So these are most likely the kind of people that will either be in one job for all their lives. They cannot change. They can not just one job specifically, but so they'll get into a company and they will never move up, or they can't move around in the company because they just can't learn new skills, or they refuse to learn new skills. All right. Just become very, very stagnant in life, sort of thing, right? Tendency to change the meanings of reality when facing a threat to self-esteem. So, if I had to tell you that I'm a woman, that would be a perfect example, right? So yeah, they change the meaning of reality when facing a threat to self-esteem. I mean, Sometimes you will, I'm guaranteed you've met someone like this in your life, where it's literally in front of their face that that something is the case, right? And they will just reinterpret reality, right? I was telling a story earlier on. This is my bloody ADD. So this woman, all right, this Jamaican Caribbean woman, says it is racism because her child that was going to do gymnastics had braids. So reality, there's no such thing as reality. There's only what they think, right? As a threat to, they see it. So this woman clearly bases her self-esteem, her identity, on the fact that she's black, right? In a sense, right? Everything rests on the fact that she's black. That's this massive part of her identity. And any perceived threat to her identity or self-esteem, because she constantly, my beautiful black children, why do you have to say this? I know they're black because they came out of you, right? I know this. My beautiful, why do you constantly have to tell me they're it's like you're trying to convince me. Are you trying to convince me, or are you trying to convince yourself, right? So why would someone in either gymnastics or in dancing tell a young black girl, please tie up your braids or get rid of them entirely? The reason for this is that the centrifugal force, right, that is generated by the activities of gymnasts and dancers turns, you need to understand, the braid is a cord, it's like a whip. You can generate enough centrifugal force and kinetic energy, get that kinetic energy or momentum behind the braids, that it literally turns into a whip. That whip, right, that force is enough to cut you open so severely that you would require stitches. Now, what happens if those braids hit you in the face or hit you in the eye? You will go blind. You will put your own eyes out, or the eyes out, because some of these braids, some of these black girls can have braids that are really, really long, right? You can severely injure not only yourself but someone else. That is what, it's nothing to do with racism. Nothing, but because her self-esteem and her identity rests on this concept that, well, black is wonderful, or black is whatever, right? She clearly is not happy about the fact that she's black. She has a chip on her shoulder about being black. I don't know why, right? No one should have a chip on their shoulder about being anything that they are, unless, of course, you're a narcissist, in which case you should change, right? You are who you are. Finished. Get over it. You are who you are, right? The people that complain the most about being accepted are the ones who do not accept themselves in the first place. So she completely reinterprets reality to determine this was racist. This was racial discrimination. No, the woman who told you, listen, take your damn kid's braids off, was not being racist. She was concerned for your child's safety and the safety of the other kids in the vicinity. That's why. This is why, ladies and gentlemen, ballerinas, think about ballerinas. Do you know why ballerinas are also known as bun heads? Ballerinas always have their hair in a bun. Right? That's why, because the hair can literally whip and injure the people in their close proximity to the point where they will require stitches. And if you have a big gash or scar across your face, guess what? Your ballet career is over. If you get blinded, your career is over. So for this woman, for her narrow-minded, narcissistic interpretation, chip on her shoulder interpretation, rather than thinking, or even if there was, can ask the teacher, why is this the case? To ask for no, immediately, I'm under threat. This is clearly racist. I am being attacked. I'm being violated here. I'm this victim. Really unbelievable, right? So the daughter can risk getting injured as long as I feel better about myself and my cultural whatever, right? That's literally it. And you see this just all over. Language and speaking used for regulating self-esteem, right? This is the cognitive style. Language and speaking used for regulating self-esteem. So when I talk to these people, I mean, and a lot of them are at my church. Knowledge limited to trivia, headline knowledge. There's no in-depth knowledge whatsoever. None. I know that all they're doing is parroting what they've heard. They're not because they understand it, not because of nothing, right? And you can't get them to say, you can't get them to see or think otherwise at all, right? I've been offended. I'm the victim of racial discrimination, and you can tell them nothing different. Nothing different. And the fact that, here's the worst thing, right? Here's the worst thing. The mere fact that you disagree with them, even though they know you, right? They know me. They know that I am of mixed race. I am in a mixed race relationship, right? I descend from slaves in Brazil. I have never in my life demonstrated, and they've known me for about 10 years now. Because I disagreed with them, they were willing to believe that I was racist. Fellow church members who know better, except for one actually approached me later privately and said, Morgan, when you said this, what did you mean? First of all, the mere fact that he asked is a problem, right? Because he was uncertain. Because I have never given anyone a shadow of an inkling of a doubt to think that I am racist in any. If I had to be racist, I would literally have to hate myself, right? I mean, come on. Because I've got everything in the blood running here. I've got all of it. But at least he was willing to ask, did you mean this? And when I said no, he was like, fair enough, I didn't think so. But nevertheless, everyone else thought that that was the case. And I'm like, really? How long have you people known me? How long have you people known me for? That you would believe, that you would take the worst interpretation of what I said and twist it like that. That's changing the meaning, that's changing reality. Because I am a threat to their fabricated, to their lie, their fantasy, their delusion. Therefore, the only explanation must be that I am a racist. Not that they could be wrong. No, I'm a racist, I'm bigoted, I'm narrow-minded, I'm this and this and that. Even though I'm trying to unshackle their minds from an ideology that seeks to imprison their minds and divide the church. Right? Can't tell them anything. Right? Can't tell them anything. And you see this, man. You see this everywhere in the church. Language and speaking used for regulating self-esteem. So everything they say is me and how wonderful or how victimized, and aggrandizement the whole time. The victim is lifted to the position of martyr. This is the thing. When they say victim, what they actually mean is martyr. They are elevated to the position of Saint Paul and Saint Peter, the apostles who fought for justice and whatever else. They do not actually mean victim. So when they use this is the manipulation of language. They don't mean victim. They mean martyr. They are not victims. They are martyrs. In their mind, I am a martyr. I'm so innocent. I've done nothing wrong to deserve this. Right? All the time. And it is nothing but pride. Nothing but pride. We look at these people, we read the Bible, we say, oh, the Pharisees were doing wrong. We literally have a Pharisaical culture in the church today in the form of the social justice worldview, way of behaving, etc. We literally have it replicated again in our church today, and people do not have the ability to recognize the pride and the arrogance of people who are pretending to be righteous and virtue and on the side of the oppressed and the whatever and the whatever and the whatever. For all this concern and all of this pearl clutching, oh, the poor black people, the poor Hispanic people, the poor minorities, for all that concern, somehow they're still oppressed. And why? Oh, because the white man is so powerful, so powerful, that he thwarts every attempt at racial justice. Right? When they say the words victim, when they say the words justice, when they say the words love, they do not mean what you and me normally mean. They do not mean what the Bible means. Because it's a manipulation of language all the time. When they're saying, oh, but women are equal, right? They use the Bible, oh, women are equal. What they do not mean that women are equal in value. They mean that also, but that's not what they mean. They're saying that women are the same as men and therefore can do the same things as men, and therefore if there is any division of labor whatsoever between the sexes, that is a sign of sexism and discrimination, even though God himself is accused of being a sexist. Right? When God says the Philistines were evil, the Amalekites were evil, the Canaanites were evil, the Sodomites were evil, we're going to destroy them, this philosophy will say that God was a racist against those cultures. He was racist, he was a bigot, he was prejudiced, and those people, the people doing wrong, they were the victims. And Israel was an oppressive imperialistic power. Do you hear that today? That God is a tyrant? Do you hear that today? That God is a tyrant and that Israel was racist and oppressive and they were racially prejudiced against their surrounding neighbors, and they were prejudiced and discriminatory against the Philistines. Never mind that the Philistines and the Canaanites and these people used to literally burn their children alive to their gods. Never mind that. Never mind the fact that they used to burn their children alive to the god Moloch daily. Never mind that they used to have children to act as prostitutes at the temples for the sexual perversion worship of the gods that demanded perverse sexual relationships with children. Never mind that that's what these perverted civilizations were doing. That. Never mind that that all the people in Sodom and Gomorrah wanted to rape publicly in the street the angels. That. Never mind that. That's prejudice. That was racist. The Sodomites were the victims. Do you hear that today, ladies and gentlemen? And every idiot in the Christian church has swallowed it hook, line, and sinker. Why? Because not only are they being led by the nose by narcissists, grandiose narcissists who say, if you do what I say, we're going to change the world for the better. But they themselves are narcissists as well, because they are self-aggrandizing. Look at me, I'm so righteous that I'm going along with this righteous behavior and this righteous fight against oppression and this righteous whatever the hell it is, whatever garbage they bring up. The cultural relativism, all of it. The single greatest pathology of the modern world, mental pathology of the modern world, is pride. It is narcissism. And you can ask any psychologist worth his salt, he'll tell you the same thing. Social media is spreading it like a virus. You can actually look at, because all of these disorders are literally contagious. They are contagious. You can actually study the personality disorders, narcissism, psychopathy, histrionics, borderline and stuff like that, and the way they spread throughout of a population, they actually spread in the same way a virus would spread. It's contagious. The traits are contagious, and people will adopt those traits in order to survive in a society that is narcissistic, that is virtue signaling, that is etc, etc, etc. People are literally, when it comes to the social justice gospel, Christians that are in line with that are literally following the philosophy of the world. They're keeping up with the Joneses of ideology, because that's what's fashionable today. And let me tell you something, it's not going to go away anytime soon. Because think about prosperity gospel. We have the question of prosperity gospel has been settled. No one, even the prosperity gospel preachers themselves, will tell you, no, I'm not preaching prosperity gospel because that is a false teaching. Yet that's what they're doing. They're lying. It's a manipulation of language. They are narcissists. It's not going to go away. Social justice gospel, social justice church, the woke church is here to stay as a subculture within the Christian church, as a cult within the Christian church. It is here to stay. Just like every other heresy on the planet, they do not go away. They eventually, if the biblical Christianity perseveres, all they will do is break off, right? They will break off and form their own little group, like the prosperity gospel and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. That's how it happens. Narcissism makes you gullible, by the way. Especially if you are a covert narcissist. But overt narcissist as well. Makes you very gullible. You believe easily. You can be easily manipulated. Very, very easily manipulated. Why? Because remember what I said before. The narcissist is actually a child. You are dealing with your 4-year-old with a child between the ages of, mentally, between the ages of 4 to 9. How easy it is it to manipulate children? Very, very easy. Very easy. And that's why people are so easily manipulated. It's because we are not mature. Does the Bible talk about being mature? Yes, plenty. Right? Start off on soft food and move over to hard food. When you go to a church today, right? And soft food is basically you start off with theology, easy teaching, stuff that gets you started, but then the person has to progress to the really, really hard, eventually the really hardcore theology, philosophy of Christianity, the stuff that really needs a lot of chewing in order for you to digest it and get it down. Do you hear the hardcore stuff in church these days anymore? No. Preach the love of Jesus. The love of Jesus is all we need. That's all we need. Just the love of Jesus and how we must love everyone. This is a Christian utopia. We're all so loving. We're all so loving. You can't rebuke anyone. Can't rebuke anyone because you are violating their authenticity and whatever word salad that these people can put at the end of the sentence, right? Just nothing. No, you're a miserable, bloody sinner and you need to repent. You are a prideful narcissist and you need to repent. We are all of us, me too. I'm not excluding myself from this. All of us, every single one. Need to. This is where I'm arrogant. This is where I'm prideful. This is where I'm rebellious against God. Because even though I'm willing to confess with my mouth that I am a sinner, in my heart I do not actually believe it. I'm paying lip service. This is why people don't take their religion seriously, right? Think about the COVID-19 that's just happened. The amount of people I had asking me for Bible study, etc., right? During COVID-19, where everything was, oh, now suddenly we need God. Suddenly we need God. Do you know where all of these people are now? I've got no idea. Gone. Now that they've gone back to their normal lives, they've forgotten all about God. And you see the same thing at church every week. Every week. These people who, they come to church, praise the Lord, God has been so good to me this week, amen, and they walk out of the church and forget. You cannot get them to do a Bible study. You can't get them to do anything. Yet the first ones who will be like, oh, we have to do something to, the world is racist and evil, we have to do something. The first ones there to share the actual gospel. You cannot find head nor tail of these people. They're gone. You don't see them, right? I'm too busy to do a Bible study. I'm too busy to listen to a seminar or a lecture, to read, to study the Bible. No. But CNN, call to arms, fight racism. There they are. What can we do? What can we do? Facebook profile. Blackout Tuesday. Red strip across the face, black strip across the face. Because that's going to make a difference. That's going to change the world because you changed your Facebook profile picture. You know, wow, yeah, man, you know, slaves have been freed because of your profile picture. Children have been anointed because of your profile picture, because you send good thoughts. Children have been healed from leprosy because you took the time to send good thoughts. Man. Anyway, so, you know, and it's like, and this is going to go away, right? As soon as this whole racism thing dies down, right, it'll go away until the next cycle. Then suddenly racism is the big issue again, right? So think about in the past month, because churches have been doing church on Zoom, online, and all these kinds of things. How many sermons have you heard about racism? How do we deal with racism? Posts on Facebook by churches. How do we deal with racism? How do Christians respond to racism? Racism this and racism that, and racism the next bloody thing, right? Before George Floyd got killed, how much did you hear about racism this and racism that? How long ago was it? Well, it wasn't since the last guy got killed. Because there's this period between hysteria that everyone just forgets that racism is even a thing. They just forget about it. You don't hear anyone preach. You don't hear anyone talk about it. Nothing until the next wave of hysteria hits, and suddenly all the virtue signaling narcissistic little idiots come out of the woodwork for like 6 months. Racism is the worst thing to ever happen, ever. Right? And then it eventually starts tapering off. No one talks about it anymore. It's like, what? Racism? Oh, we cured it. It magically went away because we were outraged enough and we protested, so racism went away. Okay. Until Black Lives Matter is like, right. So who's been shot by a white man recently? You know, and is there a political campaign, a democratic political campaign that needs funding sometime soon? Yes. All right. Cool. CNN. Let's go protest. Let's go protest. Show us on TV going, and suddenly everyone is outraged again. It's the cycle. Has no one else noticed? Has no one else noticed? You know, it's these cycles. So we now have the race issue. The next one. So there will be a period of quiet, and then it'll be the next thing. Probably gay or transgender, and because I mean just before it was transgender issues last year, transgender everywhere, right? The transgender this and that and the next thing. Now suddenly it's race again. Probably the next thing will be gay again, then lesbian, and then transgender again, and then Greta Thunberg maybe will come out of the woodworks, and then we'll have environment. It's this constant cycle. This constant cycle, right? And every idiot in the church just goes spinning along with it and imagines themselves to be righteous and holy. Oh, because I'm fighting the good fight, and the Lord is going to look at me, and then one day the Lord's going to be like, yeah, I didn't know you. How dare you? Didn't I feed the poor? Doesn't the Bible say that? Not everyone. They're going to be like, Lord, Lord. And Jesus is going to be like, I don't know you. Who are you? But Lord, didn't we protest? Didn't we feed the poor? Didn't we go activism against racism? Didn't I perform my anti-racism work? To grant me the white privilege of going to heaven. Right? Didn't I do all of that? And Christ is going to be like, I don't know you. Because even though you were saying it, you weren't doing anything. Even though you were complaining and virtue signaling and kicking up a stink and kicking up a fuss, in terms of real actual actions, you didn't do anything. You didn't solve the problem. The people who suffer continue to suffer. The people who needed ministering to did not get ministering to. The education that you should have continued to receive about your faith, about the gospel, about the Bible, you did not go deeper into your theology or into your philosophy, or you didn't do anything. You literally went from one outrage, hysteria, to the next, and nothing changed. Nothing changed. In fact, the only thing that changed was the fact that the political machinery grew more powerful and more powerful and more powerful, to the point where the political machinery is going to dictate every single thing you think, say, and do. Which is what Revelation prophesies is going to happen at the end of time. Ladies and gentlemen, eventually you're going to get this mark of the beast either on your hand or on your forehead, and you will think accordingly, or you will act accordingly, even if you don't think accordingly, but you will do what we say, otherwise persecution. Stupid Christians are literally helping the beast grow more powerful, because the religious arm of the beast is a very, very prominent arm. Ladies and gentlemen, we don't call it the whore of Babylon for nothing. What is a whore? A whore is a church. Is a church that rides the beast. So the beast is a political system. The beast is an oppressive political system. Why is it oppressive? It is oppressive because it is running according to the ideology of the prostitute. By the way, the prostitute is narcissistic and histrionic and borderline and psychopathic, all in one. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I hope that helped. Maybe I get in trouble. Who knows? I'm not big enough to get into any kind of trouble. It's only if I had like 2 million subscribers, then I'd probably get into trouble. The outrage mob would come after me, but I've seen as I'm a nice small channel, I'll probably just go under the radar, which is cool, sort of thing. So I'm quite happy to not have subscribers as long as y'all watch. As long as you're watching, I'm happy. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, cheerio and God bless. Have an actual relationship with him and an actual relationship with your fellow man, whether black or white or green or pink, it doesn't matter. A meaningful relationship, an actual relationship. And that is all. Recognize the narcissist in you. Firstly, recognize the narcissist in yourself, the pride within yourself, and then worry about it in other people. In fact, don't worry about it. That's not your business. You can't heal everyone, right? Don't become a Pharisee where you're trying to force other people into heaven. Okay, it's not your doing, right? Even, I mean, the whole racism is at its bottom, a self-reference, right? Think of a white supremacist. Why is he a white supremacist? He's not a white supremacist because the other person is black. He's a white supremacist because he is white. Racism has nothing to do with what the other person is and has everything to do with what you are. Right? Racism, like narcissism, is self-reference. It's about me. It's not about the other person. Racism, like all mental illnesses, pathologies, is a disease of self-reference. It's about me, what I think, what I feel, what I like, what I am not. Me. Because if hypothetically speaking, if you got a white supremacist and snapped your fingers and suddenly he turned black, guess what? He'd stop being a white supremacist very quickly because it's now it's idiotic, right? But because it's a self-reference, because he's a narcissist, he would move from being a white supremacist to being a black supremacist because it's about self-reference. It's about me. What am I? So the people who are racist and the people who are anti-racist are both narcissists. It's the same side. It's two sides of the same coin. Literally. But we ignore it. We ignore that at the root, at the bottom, it's the sin of pride. It's the sin of self-reference. There's no humility in any of this. Right? So yeah, anyway, ladies and gentlemen, God bless you. Cheerio.